Outside the window, the morning sun continued its climb into the sky, casting long shadows that gradually shortened as the day progressed. A silent reminder that even after the darkest night, dawn eventually comes. It would be a long road to recovery, filled with therapy sessions, nightmares, and painful memories. There would be a funeral for Callie, and days when grief would overwhelm them both. Yet for the first time in 10 months, Angela felt something like hope stirring within her. They would build a new life, one that honored Callie's memory while allowing them to heal and eventually thrive again. "We're going to be okay," she whispered, smoothing Lena's hair back from her forehead. "Somehow, someday, we're going to be okay." Eventually, medication began to make Lena drowsy again, and she drifted off to sleep in Angela's arms. As Angela gently laid her daughter back against the pillows, she noticed something she hadn't seen before: a small scar near Lena's hairline, likely from one of the many abuses she had suffered over the past 10 months. It was a visible reminder of all that had been taken from her daughter: her innocence, her sense of security, her twin sister. But looking at Lena's sleeping face, Angela also saw strength there, the same determined spirit that had helped her survive her ordeal. "I wish we had," Angela said, her own tears falling freely now. "I looked for both of you every single day. I never stopped." "I was so scared," Lena whispered. "After they took us and Callie was gone, they kept moving me to different places. They changed how I looked. They made me stand still while they took pictures, and if I cried, they would hit me. They said if I tried to run away or tell anyone, they would hurt you too." Angela gathered her daughter carefully in her arms. "Mindful of the IV, you were so brave, so brave, and you don't have to be scared anymore. Those people are going to jail for a very long time. They can never hurt you or anyone else again." For a long time, mother and daughter simply held each other, sharing their grief for Callie and their relief at being reunited. Angela nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Detective, for everything." "I'm just glad we found her," Ruiz said sincerely. "In all my years on the job, cases like this rarely end with the child coming home alive." After Ruiz left, Angela returned to Lena's bedside. The girl was awake again, watching her mother with an intensity that spoke volumes about her fear of being separated again. "Mom," she said in a small voice, "Callie's gone, isn't she? Really gone." Angela took a deep breath and sat down, taking Lena's hand in hers. "Yes, sweetheart, Callie is gone. The bad man hurt her very badly." Tears welled in Lena's eyes. "I knew it. He told me she was gone." Still being uncooperative, but with Monroe's testimony and the evidence we've gathered, he's now facing multiple life sentences. "Good," Angela said firmly. "I hope they rot behind prison for a long time. Even for her, she still helped keep my daughter captive for months. She still participated in. She couldn't bring herself to finish the sentence." "She'll face substantial charges," Ruiz assured. "Her cooperation may reduce her sentence, but she won't walk free." Angela glanced back at Lena through the doorway. "What happens now?" "We'll need a formal statement from you, and eventually, when she's ready, from Lena as well. But there's no rush on that. Her recovery comes first." "It's okay," Angela assured her. "Detective Ruiz is one of the good guys." Ruiz kept a respectful distance, his voice calm and gentle. "I thought you'd want to know. We conducted a raid early this morning on another property owned by Trevor Hale. It was on Cedar Island, the place he planned to take you yesterday, according to what we gathered from the ferry station. We rescued 3 more children who were being held there." Angela gasped. "Are they all right?" "They're receiving medical attention now," Ruiz said. "Some have been missing for over a year. We're working on identifying them all and contacting their families." Angela felt a surge of fierce satisfaction. What about Hale and Monroe? Are they talking? Monroe has given a full confession in exchange for leniency at sentencing, Ruiz confirmed. She said she couldn't live with the guilt any longer. She always knew it was wrong, even though she helped coordinate things from here for her husband. Hale? Mom, she whispered, as if afraid, believing it might make the vision disappear. I'm here, sweetheart, Angela said, moving to sit on the edge of the bed. You're safe now. Lena's eyes filled with tears. Callie? Where's Callie? Angela swallowed hard, unsure how to explain to an 8-year-old that her twin sister had been murdered. Before she could form a response, Detective Ruiz appeared in the doorway, his expression solemn but satisfied. May I come in? He asked quietly. Angela nodded, grateful for the momentary reprieve. Ruiz entered, taking off his hat respectfully. Morning, Angela. Hello, Lena. I'm Detective Ruiz. I've been helping your mom look for you. Lena regarded him wearily, instinctively shrinking against her mother. Dr. Chowdhury finished her examination and turned to Angela. Lena's vital signs are improving. The lab tests show the sedatives are clearing from her system, but she's still severely malnourished. We'll start her on a carefully monitored diet today. When can I take her home? Angela asked. Not for at least a few days, Dr. Chowdhury replied. We need to stabilize her physically and begin a psychological assessment before discharge. And even then, she'll need ongoing care. Angela nodded, accepting the long road ahead. About an hour later, Lena began to stir. Her eyes fluttered open, confusion clouding them briefly, before focusing on Angela. Angela nodded gratefully. Thank you for staying all night. Torres offered a tired smile. Just doing my job, ma'am. Though I have to admit, I've never seen a case like this in all my years on the force. You're one lucky woman to have found your daughter alive after all this time. Angela looked down at Lena's sleeping form. If I were lucky, I wouldn't have lost either of my daughters to begin with. Torres's expression softened. I'm sorry. That was insensitive of me. No, Angela sighed. You're right, in a way. Many parents never get closure, never find their missing children. At least I have Lena back, and I know what happened to Callie. Her voice broke slightly. It's a bitter kind of luck, but it's something. The IV drip had been replaced overnight, and a tray with bland hospital breakfast sat untouched on the side table. A soft knock at the door drew her attention. A nurse entered, followed by Dr. Nisha Chowdhury. Good morning, Dr. Chowdhury said quietly. How did she sleep? Restlessly, Angela replied. She had nightmares, kept talking in her sleep. Dr. Chowdhury nodded as she examined Lena's chart. That's to be expected. The sedatives they were giving her are working their way out of her system. We'd like to run some additional tests today, with your permission. Of course, Angela agreed. Whatever she needs. As the doctor continued her examination, Sergeant Ramirez Torres appeared in the doorway, looking like she too had spent an uncomfortable night in a chair. Mrs. Whitmore, she said. Detective Ruiz called. He's on his way here with an update. Angela nodded, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Thank you, Detective, for everything. As Ruiz left, Angela returned to Lena's bedside, settling into the uncomfortable hospital chair for what would likely be a long night. Despite the horror of what she had learned, she felt a sense of grim satisfaction that the perpetrators had been caught and a flicker of hope that her surviving daughter was finally safe. Early morning sunlight filtered through the thin hospital curtains as Angela blinked awake, her neck stiff from sleeping in the chair beside the bed. For a disorienting moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then the events of the previous day came rushing back. She sat up quickly, checking on Lena. Her daughter was still asleep, looking slightly less pale than the night before. Angela felt a chill run through her. What about the lighter with TH on it? Was that intentional? Just a coincidence, apparently. Monroe said it was her personal lighter that got mixed up with Callie's things when Hale was rushing to dispose of the body. She'd been looking for it for months. Angela glanced back at the hospital room where Lena slept. We have to make sure they never get out. And all those magazines, they need to be destroyed. Those children don't deserve to have their trauma circulating forever. Ruiz nodded firmly. We're working with federal authorities now. This is bigger than just one case, but I promise you, Hale and Monroe will pay for what they did to your family. He placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. You should get some rest. We'll need you at full strength when she wakes up. Angela felt a chill run through her. What about the lighter with TH on it? Was that intentional? Just a coincidence, apparently. Monroe said it was her personal lighter that got mixed up with Callie's things when Hale was rushing to dispose of the body. She'd been looking for it for months. Angela glanced back at the hospital room where Lena slept. We have to make sure they never get out. And all those magazines, they need to be destroyed. Those children don't deserve to have their trauma circulating forever. Ruiz nodded firmly. We're working with federal authorities now. This is bigger than just one case, but I promise you, Hale and Monroe will pay for what they did to your family. He placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. You should get some rest. We'll need you at full strength when she wakes up. Ruiz continued. According to Monroe, Hale had prepared fake documentation for Lena. They'd been moving her between different locations, from Key West up through Florida, and finally to North Carolina to avoid detection. Angela shook her head in disbelief. They were in Virginia before the cruise. Was he stalking us before this happened? Monroe confirmed that Hale traveled often, and had mentioned seeing beautiful twin girls in Virginia. Said they'd be perfect for their next edition. We believe he may have spotted you and your daughters before the cruise and planned this specifically. Angela pressed a hand to her mouth, fighting back a sob. Trevor, how did he get her off the ship? He kept her hidden in his cabin bathroom until they docked in Key West the next morning. He drugged her just enough to keep her compliant but responsive, and threatened her about Callie. When they disembarked, he used disguises, sunglasses, fake beard, different clothes, and exited during the early morning rush when most attention was on families with children. Angela closed her eyes, imagining her trusting daughters following a kind man who showed them magic tricks. And Callie, what happened to her? Ruiz's expression darkened. Denise wasn't there for that part, but from what Trevor told her later, he had originally planned to take both girls. But his partner at the time, not Denise, backed out when he realized they were twins. Apparently, keeping two children would have been too risky and complicated. So Ruiz paused. He suffocated Callie. No struggle, no blood, no noise. He wrapped her in her clothes, placed her in the suitcase, and disposed of it overboard that night from an unsecured deck area where waste is sometimes jettisoned. Ruiz sighed heavily. According to Denise, Trevor boarded the cruise under a fake name using a prepaid card and burner email. He disguised himself as part of the ship's maintenance crew by stealing a uniform from a storage closet early in the trip. He also used a small electronic device to temporarily disable the security camera near where he took the girls. Angela leaned against the wall, trying to process this information. But how did he get them to go with him? My girls knew better than to go with strangers. Denise said he'd been watching them earlier in the cruise. He saw them enjoying one of the magic shows and used that to his advantage. When he encountered them alone, he performed a simple card trick he'd learned from watching the ship's magician. Once he gained their trust, he led them to a crew hallway where there were fewer cameras. Physically, she'll recover, she said once they were outside. Emotionally, it's going to be a long road. Ruiz nodded grimly. I have updates from the interrogation. Trevor isn't talking much, but Denise is cooperating. She's looking to cut a deal." "What has she told you?" Angela asked. "A lot," Ruiz said, rubbing his tired eyes. "They weren't acting alone. They were part of a larger operation that produces and distributes illegal magazines featuring children. Trevor would provide the children, and others would handle the production." Angela felt sick. How many children are we talking about? Based on Denise's statement, we believe there are at least 10 others currently being held at a property Trevor owns under a different name. We've got teams moving on that location now. And what about my daughters? How did he get to them on the cruise? Dr. Chowdhury squeezed her shoulder comfortingly. "She's a strong girl to have survived this, and having you here will make all the difference in her recovery." After the doctor left, Angela pulled a chair close to Lena's bed and sat down, maintaining her gentle hold on her daughter's hand. Lena drifted in and out of sleep, occasionally muttering words that Angela couldn't quite catch. Hours passed this way, with nurses coming and going, checking vitals and adjusting her IV. Outside the window, night had fallen completely when Detective Ruiz appeared in the doorway. "How is she?" he asked quietly, noting Lena's sleeping form. Angela gestured for him to join her in the corridor. The doctor lowered her voice. "She appears extremely sensitive to bright lights and camera flashes, which is consistent with being subjected to frequent photography. Based on her reactions during our examination and some comments she made, I'm concerned she may have been used as a model for inappropriate material." Angela closed her eyes briefly, fighting back tears. "What's the treatment plan?" "We'll start with addressing the malnutrition through carefully monitored nutrition. The sedatives in her system should metabolize within 24 hours. Physically, she should recover relatively quickly with proper care. The psychological trauma, however," Dr. Chowdhury's voice trailed off. "She'll need specialized therapy, Mrs. Whitmore. This kind of experience leaves deep scars." Angela nodded, determination settling in her expression. "She'll get everything she needs, whatever it takes." Angela took it gently, careful not to disturb the IV. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm not going anywhere." The doctor, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a serious expression, approached them. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm Dr. Nisha Chowdhury. I've completed my initial examination of Lena." "How is she?" Angela asked, her voice tight with anxiety. Dr. Chowdhury's expression was grave. "Lena is suffering from malnutrition. She's significantly underweight for her age. There are multiple bruises on her back and legs consistent with physical discipline, likely from a narrow, flexible object, like a rattan stick or thin belt." Angela winced, squeezing Lena's hand gently. "There are also marks on her wrists and ankles," Dr. Chowdhury continued, suggesting she was restrained for extended periods, possibly with chains or zip ties. A nurse had gently but firmly asked Angela to wait outside while the medical team conducted their initial examination of Lena. Though it tore at her to be separated from her daughter so soon after finding her, Angela understood they needed space to properly document Lena's condition. "Mrs. Whitmore?" The nurse who had been attending appeared in the doorway. "You can come in now." Angela hurried into the room where Lena lay on a hospital bed, looking even smaller and more fragile against the white sheets. An IV drip fed clear liquid into her arm, and a doctor was making notes on a chart nearby. "Mom," Lena whispered, reaching out with her free hand. Angela nodded, returning to her daughter's side. "I'm coming with her," she told Ruiz. "Of course," he agreed. "I'll meet you at the hospital after we process the suspects." "This is just the beginning, Angela. We're going to need statements from both of you when Lena is stable." Angela climbed into the ambulance beside her daughter, holding the girl's hand as the vehicle pulled away, sirens wailing. Despite the horror of what they had uncovered and the grief of Callie's confirmed death, Angela felt a surge of fierce gratitude that at least one of her daughters had been found alive. "It's over, Lena," she whispered, stroking her daughter's hair. "You're safe now. They can't hurt you anymore." The harsh fluorescent lighting of the hospital corridor made Angela's eyes ache as she paced outside the emergency room. Officer Martinez remained nearby, keeping a watchful eye on both Angela and the hospital entrance. Trevor looked up, his expression disturbingly calm. "I didn't mean to kill the other one," he said matter-of-factly. "I wanted to keep both of them, but my partner backed out. I couldn't handle 2 children alone without getting caught. I had to make a choice." Angela lunged toward him, but Ruiz caught her, pulling her back. "Save it for the station, Trevor," he growled at the suspect. "You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." As the cruisers pulled away, the paramedics approached with news. "She's been drugged with a mild sedative," one reported, "and there are signs of malnutrition and physical abuse. We need to transport her to the hospital immediately for a full examination and treatment." One approached Sergeant Ramirez Torres, speaking in a low voice. "We found 2 boxes of illegal magazines in the trunk," the officer reported. "Child-centered material and syringes with what appears to be a sedative in the back seat. Looks like they were preparing to drug her before boarding the ferry." Ruiz's jaw tightened. "Get CSI on this immediately. Document everything." Angela overheard enough to understand what they had found. Her grief over Callie transformed into white-hot rage as she watched Trevor Hale and Denise Monroe being placed in separate police cruisers. Breaking away briefly, she strode toward Trevor as officers were securing him in the vehicle. "You monster," she screamed. "You didn't just smuggle your filthy magazines. You murdered my daughter. You murdered Callie." Angela looked at Rayley, truly seeing her for the first time. The girl was disturbingly thin. Her once fair skin had been darkened, likely by dye or chemicals. Her hair was cut far shorter than Angela had ever styled it, and her eyes, so familiar, were clouded with exhaustion no child should carry. "She needs medical attention," Angela said firmly. "Already on the way," Ruiz replied. Minutes later, paramedics arrived. Rayley refused to let go of her mother's hand during the examination. She flinched at the penlight flashing in her eyes and turned away with a soft whimper. "Please stop taking pictures," she murmured. Angela looked sharply at Ruiz, who made a mental note of the statement. It told them more than they wanted to know. Meanwhile, officers finished searching the suspect's car and emerged with grim expressions. "We've got them both in custody. Angela, we need to get you and Rayley someplace safe while we process the suspects." Angela nodded, still holding her daughter like she might vanish again. "Who are they?" she asked hoarsely. "IDs identify them as Douglas Karns and Kathy Evans," Ruiz said. "Husband and wife, according to their paperwork." Angela's eyes widened. Kathy Evans, K.E. Those were the initials on the lighter. Ruiz nodded grimly. "We've impounded their vehicle and are getting a warrant to search it now. Preliminary inspection found multiple suitcases in the trunk and some concerning materials in the back seat." Angela stood frozen, watching the dragnet tighten. The man tried to scale a security fence, tackled by 2 officers mid-climb. The woman ducked between parked cars, still gripping the girl's wrist, but was quickly surrounded. "Let go of the girl," one officer ordered. The woman hesitated, then let go. The child immediately bolted, turning in frantic circles until her eyes locked on Angela. "Mom!" she screamed. "Mom!" Angela tore free from Officer Martinez and ran. She dropped to her knees in the middle of the lot, scooping Rayley into her arms with a choked sob. "Rayley, "Oh my God!" The child clung to her mother, trembling, tears soaking into Angela's shoulder. Ruiz approached quietly, his tone gentle. Ruiz instantly radioed for backup, his voice taut with urgency. Suspects fleeing on foot at Ocracoke Ferry Terminal with a possible kidnapping victim. Adult male, adult female, female child, approximately 8 years old. Request immediate assistance. Secure perimeter. Harbor security joined in the alert as Ruiz turned to Angela. "Stay here with Martinez. We can't risk you getting hurt if they're dangerous." Before Angela could argue, Ruiz was off, sprinting toward the fleeing suspects, his weapon drawn but held low. "Police, stop where you are," he commanded. The man glanced back, saw Ruiz, and bolted faster, shouting something at the woman. Chaos erupted at the terminal. Police cruisers swarmed the lot, blocking exits. Foot officers pursued from all directions. Ferry passengers were herded to safe zones. The boarding ramp was sealed. "They're going to do a secondary check on that car, just to be safe." Angela held her breath as the car inched forward. When it reached the checkpoint, the officer motioned for it to pull aside. Through the glass, Angela could see the driver talking urgently on a cell phone. Suddenly, the car doors flew open. A man in his 50s sprang from the driver's side, and a woman in her 30s yanked open the rear door, dragging a small girl with her. "That's them," Angela cried. "That's Rayley." The trio broke into a run, weaving between waiting cars. The man led the way, while the woman struggled to keep hold of the reluctant child. The driver's window rolled down to present tickets. In the back seat sat a child and an adult female. The child seemed restless, squirming under the woman's restraining arm. From this distance, Angela couldn't see the child's face clearly, but the girl's profile, the hair, something struck deep. "Rayley," she whispered, her heart thundering. "That's my daughter." Detective Ruiz caught up and took her arm. "You can't just approach random vehicles. We don't have enough evidence." "It's her," Angela insisted, yanking her arm free. "I saw her face. Just for a second. That's my daughter." Ruiz paused, then signaled to Officer Martinez. "Stay with her. I'll speak with the ferry staff." He approached the booth and spoke quickly with the ticketing officer, who then glanced toward the car, now 3 vehicles away from boarding. After a few tense moments, Ruiz returned. "That car," she exclaimed, pointing to a vehicle waiting in line for the ferry. "It has the same license plate, DK and KE." Ruiz followed her gaze, his expression sharpening as he spotted the car. Through the tinted rear window, they could just make out the silhouettes of people inside, an adult and what appeared to be a child in the back seat. "That could be anyone," Ruiz cautioned. "Let's not jump to conclusions." But Angela was already moving toward the ferry line. Pulled by a force stronger than logic. "I just want to see who's inside," she called back. "Angela, wait!" Ruiz hurried after her, but before he could reach her, she had arrived at the ticketing checkpoint, where an officer was verifying vehicles before boarding. They sat, watching the house for several minutes, but there was no movement or sign of activity inside. "I think we should head back to the station," Ruiz finally decided. "We need to coordinate with local authorities and develop a proper approach. If Karns is involved in what happened to your daughters, we need to be strategic." Angela nodded reluctantly. "I'm exhausted anyway. Could you drop me at the ferry station? I'll go back to the cabin for tonight." "I'd rather not have you take the public ferry," Detective Ruiz said. "Officer Martinez can take you back in the police boat. It's safer and more discreet." They drove to the harbor, where Officer Martinez waited with the boat. As they approached the dock, Angela suddenly grabbed Ruiz's arm. Ruiz nodded. "We can do a drive-by, but I don't have a warrant to search the property yet. We'd need more evidence to get one." They drove through a quiet residential neighborhood of modest, single-story homes with well-maintained yards. As they approached the address listed for Douglas Karns, they slowed down, observing the property from across the street. The house was unremarkable, a pale yellow bungalow with white trim and a neatly mowed lawn. A car sat in the driveway, its license plate partially visible. "Look at that," Angela said suddenly, pointing to the plate. "The first letters are DK, and the last two are K." Ruiz frowned. "That's interesting, but we can't make assumptions. DK could stand for Douglas Karns, but the K might be coincidental." "What about suitcases?" Angela asked. "Do you sell those here too?" The clerk looked confused. "No, ma'am. We're a newsstand, not a luggage shop." Angela exchanged glances with Ruiz. "The tourist said he bought the suitcase here." The clerk shrugged. "Maybe Mr. Karns sold him one of his personal items. He sometimes brings in odd stuff to sell on the side. I don't ask questions." "Thank you for your help," Ruiz said, taking the business card. "If Mr. Karns comes in, please don't mention our visit. It's important for our investigation." Back in the car, Angela suggested they drive by Karns's home address. "Maybe we can get a look at the place. See if there's anything suspicious." "Do you have contact information for him?" The clerk hesitated. "Sure, I guess so." He fumbled beneath the counter and produced a business card with a phone number and address. "Do you sell Zippo lighters here?" Angela asked, stepping forward. The clerk nodded and gestured to a small display case near the register. "Right here. Got a few different styles." Angela and Ruiz examined the lighters. They were identical to the one found with Millie. Same brand, same size, just with different designs and no initials. Ruiz showed the clerk a photo of the evidence lighter on his phone. "Have you seen this specific lighter before? It has the initials K engraved on it." The clerk squinted at the image. "We sell a lot of these, and customers sometimes get them engraved after purchase. But yeah, it looks like ours. Same brand, same model." The kiosk was a small standalone structure in a strip mall parking lot. The kind of place that sold newspapers, magazines, lottery tickets, and a hodgepodge of convenience items. A thin man in his 30s stood behind the counter, arranging a display of cigarettes. He looked up as they entered, his expression neutral. "Can I help you?" he asked. "We're closing soon." Ruiz showed his badge. "Detective Ruiz, Virginia State Police. Are you the owner of this establishment?" The man shook his head. "No, sir. I just work here. Mr. Karns is the owner." "Is he around?" Ruiz asked. "No, he's rarely here. Moves between the different locations, checking in maybe once a week at each place." "Detective Ruiz, we've got that information for you. Karns Corner News is owned by Douglas Karns, age 57. The business has 3 locations. The main one in Greenville, one in Charlotte, and a new location opening in Virginia Beach next month. Sending you the Greenville address and Karns's home address now." Ruiz checked his phone as the information came through. "It's late afternoon, but we still have some daylight left. Let's go check out this kiosk." They boarded the police boat with Officer Martinez and Bannister, who offered to navigate them back to the mainland. The return journey seemed faster. Urgency, driving them forward as the sun continued its westward descent. Once on the mainland, Ruiz requisitioned a police vehicle, and they drove directly to the address provided for Karns Corner News. He grabbed his radio and contacted the station. "I need all available information on a business called Karns Corner News in Greenville. Owner's name, address, business history, the works." While they waited for the information, Angela explained how the tourist, Jeff Thornton, had described the owner as an older guy who's always got some deal going on. "If the suitcase matches the one Millie was found in," Angela said, "and the lighter has the same store sticker as the one with her initials, KE, this can't be a coincidence." Ruiz nodded. examining the suitcase closely. This could be the break we needed. The radio crackled to life. Angela quickly explained about the tourist's lighter and suitcase and the connection to a newspaper kiosk in Greenville. I need to show you this immediately. Stay where you are, Ruiz instructed. I'll come to you. 15 minutes later, Angela stood at the shoreline with Officer Martinez, waiting as Ruiz approached the seaside cabin resort. The detective was deep in conversation with Curtis Bannister, who had apparently joined him after their earlier departure. As they arrived, Angela noticed from the distance the news van pulling away. The reporter apparently finished with their coverage for the day. "Show me what you found," Ruiz said, without preamble. Angela led him back to her cabin and showed him the suitcase, describing the lighter with its price sticker. The man said he bought both items from a magazine kiosk in Greenville called Karns Corner News. Ruiz's expression sharpened. "Karns? That's interesting." Thornton's expression shifted from confusion to horror. "Oh God, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." He shook his head. "I hope they find whoever did that. If there's anything else I can do to help." "Thank you for the information about the kiosk," Angela said. "It might be more helpful than you know." As Thornton left to catch his ferry back to the mainland, Angela returned to her cabin with the broken suitcase, her mind racing with possibilities. Officer Martinez watched her curiously, but didn't ask questions. Angela set the suitcase down and reached for her phone, her fingers trembling slightly as she dialed Detective Ruiz's number. "I haven't left yet," Detective Ruiz confirmed when Angela called. "What's going on? Would you?" Angela swallowed hard. "Would you mind if I had it? I know it sounds strange, but—" "Take it," the man said with a dismissive wave. "Save me the trouble of disposing of it." "Thank you," Angela said. "May I ask your name and contact information? I'd like to thank you properly." The man looked slightly confused but provided his details. "Name's Jeff Thornton. Can I ask why you're so interested in my old junk?" Angela took a deep breath. "I'm here with the police investigating my missing daughters. One of them was found in a suitcase just like this." "Sir, are you sure you want to leave this behind?" the staff member asked. "We found it in your cabin." Angela's eyes widened as she stared at the suitcase. It was the same color, same style, same size as the one that had contained Millie's remains. "Where did you get that?" The question burst from her before she could stop herself. The man chuckled. "Same place as the lighter. Actually, the kiosk owner in Greenville sold it to me for next to nothing when I bought the lighter. Used it once, and the handle's already broken. Total junk. Shouldn't have wasted my money." As he took it from her, Angela pointed to the sticker. "If you don't mind me asking, where did you get this?" "I collect vintage lighters, and I've been looking for this brand." "Oh, it's from a little magazine kiosk in Greenville," he replied. "Small place, but they've got all sorts of odds and ends." "Does it have a name?" Angela asked, trying to keep her voice casual. "Karns' Corner News, I think. It's run by this older guy who's always got some deal going on." "Why? You from around there?" "No, but there's a similar shop in Charlottesville, Virginia, where I live," Angela said. On the bottom was a price sticker with a store logo that matched the partial sticker from the evidence lighter. Angela felt a chill run through her despite the warm air. Seeing the man still heading toward the front desk, she hurried to catch up with him, lighter in hand. "Excuse me," she called. "You forgot this." The man turned, surprised, then smiled when he saw the lighter and his cigarette package. "Thanks. I would have missed that for sure. Welcome drink on the house. I'm so sorry about your daughter." Angela accepted the mug with murmured thanks, wrapping her cold fingers around its warmth as she sat watching the waves crash against the shore. The same ocean that had carried Millie's body to this beach continued its eternal rhythm, indifferent to human tragedy. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, Angela noticed movement from the cabin directly across from hers. A man emerged, checking his pockets, as if ensuring he had everything before departure. He set his bag down on the small table outside his door while he locked up, then headed toward the resort's main office. Angela noticed he had left something on the outdoor coffee table, a small metallic object catching the late afternoon sun. Curious, she walked over to check and found a cigarette package and a lighter. She picked them up, turning the lighter over in her hand. "Officer Martinez will accompany you to the cabins and remain with you overnight." Angela thanked him, then allowed Bannister to introduce her to the cabin owner, a genial man named Greg Harrison, who expressed his deep sympathies and assured her they had plenty of space. "It's not tourist season yet," Harrison explained as they walked the short distance to the cluster of beachfront cabins. "You'll have all the privacy you need." The cabin was simple but clean, a single room with a queen bed, small kitchenette, and bathroom. A covered porch faced the ocean with 2 Adirondack chairs positioned to watch the waves. After settling her things inside, Angela found herself drawn to the porch. Officer Martinez took up a discreet position nearby, giving her space while maintaining her protective watch. A young waitress brought Angela a mug of coffee, offering it with a sympathetic smile. Angela looked at him with sudden understanding. "Did you ever find him?" Bannister shook his head. "The sea keeps its secrets, but at least I know where to go when I want to talk to him." When Ruiz returned, Angela told him of her plan to stay overnight. He nodded thoughtfully. "That's fine, but I'm going to assign an officer to stay with you for protection. Until we know more about what happened to your daughters, we need to be cautious." He called over a female officer who had been helping with the scene investigation. As Ruiz walked over to speak with the reporter, Bannister remained with Angela. "There's an accommodation not far from here," he said after a moment of respectful silence. "A small cabin resort where you can stay tonight before heading back to the mainland tomorrow. The owner's right over there, actually." He nodded toward a middle-aged man standing with the other onlookers beyond the police tape. Angela wiped her eyes and stood up. "I think I'd like that. I don't want to leave just yet." "I understand," Bannister said kindly. "When my son went missing in a boating accident 5 years ago, I couldn't leave the harbor for weeks. Sometimes you need to be close to the last place they were." Detective Ruiz knelt beside her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "The forensic team has been very thorough, Angela. This is a significant lead after 10 months of searching. We'll find Rayley, too." A few feet away, the news reporter had noticed their arrival and was speaking urgently to her cameraman. Ruiz saw them and frowned. "Let me handle the press," he said, rising to his feet. "You take a moment here." Angela acknowledged him with a slight nod, her eyes fixed on the depression in the sand where the suitcase had been found. Though the actual suitcase had been removed, the investigators had preserved the site for further evidence collection. "Right here," Bannister said, stopping at the edge of the depression. "This is exactly where I found it. The tide was going out, and it had just been left on the sand." Angela stared at the spot, trying to process that this remote, beautiful stretch of beach was where her daughter's remains had come to rest after 10 months of drift. She crouched down, her fingers digging into the cool, damp sand. "There must be more evidence," she whispered, sifting the grains through her fingers. "Something else that could tell us where she is." Bannister skillfully guided the boat toward a small dock extending from the shore. Once secured, he helped Angela and Detective Ruiz disembark onto the weathered wooden planks. "This way," he said, leading them down the dock and onto the beach. The sand was cool beneath Angela's feet as they approached the cordoned-off area. An officer lifted the tape to allow them access, nodding in recognition to Detective Ruiz. "Mrs. Whitmore," the officer said solemnly, "we're very sorry for your loss." Detective Ruiz sat beside her, alternating between making calls to update his department and watching Angela with concern. "It's just over there," Bannister called over the engine noise, pointing toward a stretch of shoreline ahead. "That's where I found it." As they approached, Angela could see a small crowd gathered on the beach. Yellow police tape cordoned off a section of sand, and several officers in uniform moved about the area, methodically taking photographs and measurements. A news van was parked on a nearby access road, a reporter and cameraman standing at a respectful distance from the police line. Ruiz exchanged glances with the sheriff. "Are you sure that's wise?" "I need to see it," Angela insisted, a new determination in her voice. "I need to stand in that spot. I have to be strong enough to face this if I'm ever going to find it." After a moment's consideration, Ruiz nodded. "All right, I'll accompany you. I should see the location myself anyway." "I can take you both there," Bannister offered. "My boat's docked nearby, and some of the investigation team is still at the site." Angela nodded gratefully. "Thank you. I'd appreciate that." The journey to Ocracoke Island took just under an hour by boat. Angela sat at the bow, her face turned into the salt spray as Curtis Bannister navigated the choppy waters, separating the barrier islands from the mainland. "We'll need to coordinate with the cruise line again, review all security footage, and re-interview key personnel who were working that day. We'll also need to map the ship's route against ocean currents to determine where the suitcase might have been dropped." The sheriff nodded. "Our forensic team will complete their analysis of the remains and all items found in the suitcase. We've already begun DNA testing. Mrs. Whitmore," Ruiz turned to Angela, "we'd like you to stay in the area for a few days. We'll need additional statements from you as the investigation progresses." Angela wiped a tear from her cheek and straightened her shoulders. "I understand. Before I go to wherever I'm staying, I'd like to visit the beach where the suitcase was found." The sheriff pointed to the partially peeled price sticker on the bottom of the lighter. "There's a store logo still visible here. It's not from any major chain that I recognize, but it might give us a lead." Angela peered at the sticker, feeling a flicker of recognition. "That pattern seems familiar somehow, but I can't place it. May I take photos?" she asked, already reaching for her phone. "Of course," the sheriff nodded. "We'll also send you digital copies of all evidence photos and reports." As Angela took pictures, Ruiz continued discussing the case with the local authorities. "With these findings, we're officially reclassifying this from a missing persons case to a homicide investigation," he stated. "That's a good question," the sheriff interjected. "This style of suitcase is made of a material that actually becomes buoyant when submerged. If the perpetrator didn't weight it down properly, it would eventually float to the surface and drift with the currents." "What happens now?" Angela asked, looking between the officers. "We process all the evidence," Ruiz explained. "The suitcase itself is an older model with distinct characteristics. Not many people use this type anymore. We'll track down where it was sold and try to identify who purchased it. Same with the Zippo lighter." The man shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "I was walking along the beach near my home like I do most mornings. Noticed something washed up that didn't look like usual debris. When I got closer, I could smell, well, it wasn't good. I opened it just enough to see what was inside and called the police right away." "Was there anything else?" Angela asked desperately. "Any sign of my other daughter, Rayley?" Bannister shook his head. "Just the suitcase, ma'am. I'm sorry." Angela turned back to Detective Ruiz. "Why would someone put Callie in a suitcase and throw it into the ocean if they wanted to dispose of her?" She struggled with the words. Why not something that would sink? There was something else found with the remains, he said, an item that doesn't appear to belong with a child's possessions. Inside the clear plastic bag was a silver Zippo lighter, tarnished by seawater but still intact. Engraved on its surface were the initials K.E. "This doesn't belong to my daughters," Angela confirmed, studying the lighter through the plastic. "They were 8 years old. They wouldn't have had something like this. It's our first potential lead," Ruiz noted, examining the lighter. "An anomaly that could help us identify whoever did this." Angela turned to the fisherman. "Mr. Bannister, can you tell me exactly how you found this?" "That's Callie's shirt," Angela whispered, her voice breaking. "Those are her goggles. I bought matching sets for both girls, but Callie's had a C and Riley's had an R." The medical examiner nodded solemnly. "We'd like your permission to take a DNA sample from you for confirmation. Though based on your identification of these personal effects?" "Yes, of course," Angela agreed numbly. "But I don't need DNA to tell me that's my daughter." Detective Ruiz placed a supportive hand on her shoulder as the examiner continued, showing her a separate evidence bag. Inside lay the badly decomposed remains of a small child. 10 months drifting in ocean currents had left the body bloated, discolored, and partially skeletonized, but the child had been wrapped in layers of clothing that preserved some identifying features. "The victim appears to have died from asphyxiation," the medical examiner explained clinically. "There is no evidence of blunt force trauma, no sharp injuries, no blood. This indicates the victim likely died quickly and quietly." But Angela barely heard him. Her eyes were fixed on the faded red Minnie Mouse t-shirt, the same one Callie had been wearing that day on the cruise. Partially visible beneath the decomposed remains was a pair of blue swim goggles, the initial C still faintly visible on the side. Detective Ruiz respected her space, reviewing case notes on his tablet, while occasionally glancing her way to ensure she was holding up. When they landed, a local officer met them at the regional airport and drove them to a modest sheriff's substation near the edge of town. The building was utilitarian, a single-story brick structure set back from the road, surrounded by pine trees that swayed in the coastal breeze. "The forensic materials from Ocracoke Island were sent here," Ruiz explained as they approached the entrance. "It's the nearest facility equipped to handle this kind of evidence." A sudden knock at the door jolted her back to the present. She grabbed her overnight bag and opened the door to find Detective Ruiz standing there, his expression grave yet composed. "Are you ready?" he asked gently. Angela nodded, locking her door behind her. As they walked to his unmarked police car, she steeled herself for what was to come. After 10 months of uncertainty, she was about to face a mother's worst nightmare, or perhaps find the first real clue to what happened to her daughters. The flight to North Carolina passed in intense silence. Angela stared out the small airplane window, watching the landscape below change from urban sprawl to the coastal plains of the Outer Banks. The U.S. Coast Guard and FBI became involved. Local port authorities and police at the ship's last dock and upcoming ports were informed of the situation. A formal investigation commenced, including head counts, lockdowns, and interviews with all passengers who had to show identification. Despite the exhaustive search, Lena and Callie remained missing. Some passengers whispered that they must have fallen overboard. Others speculated they had been taken when the ship docked. The cruise line insisted their security protocols were sound, but the fact remained that 2 8-year-old girls had vanished without explanation. An hour slipped by unnoticed, lost in the haze of Angela's thoughts. The hours that followed were a blur of panic and disbelief as Angela frantically scoured every corner of the massive ship. The cruise staff issued a ship-wide alert and launched an exhaustive search, combing through public areas, kids' clubs, pools, and restrooms. They conducted cabin-to-cabin checks of all staterooms, including those that were locked or unassigned. Security footage showed the girls watching a poolside performance, but when the crowd dispersed, they disappeared from view. Despite reviewing hours of CCTV footage from around the ship, there was no further trace of them. After 24 hours, with no sign of the twins, the ship's flag state was notified. She moved mechanically through her home, still in disbelief as she packed a small overnight bag. Her mind spun with memories from 10 months ago, the cruise she had worked overtime to afford, a vacation meant to create lasting moments with her daughters. She recalled the restaurant where they'd stopped for a late lunch after swimming. It had been quiet, just past 3:30 p.m., with minimal staff. She'd left the girls for 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, to answer an important call outside where the reception was better. When she returned, they were gone. The restaurant staff had seen the twins leave, but couldn't say where they had gone. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Angela's hand gripped the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. "What?" The word came out as barely a whisper. "I can't explain everything over the phone," Ruiz continued. "We're flying to North Carolina together. The suitcase also contains personal items and objects that we need you to identify immediately." "When?" Angela asked, already on her feet, moving toward her bedroom on unsteady legs. "I'll pick you up in an hour. The evidence is being held at a forensic lab attached to the sheriff's department in North Carolina. It contains remains, so they're waiting for our arrival before proceeding." "Detective, any news?" she asked, her voice betraying the fragile hope she still clung to. She expected the usual, a tip that led nowhere, a sighting that couldn't be verified, or just a courtesy check-in. Jonah Ruiz's voice was different today, tight, controlled, with an undercurrent she hadn't heard before. "I've just received information from the police department in Ocracoke Island, North Carolina." She straightened in her chair. "What kind of information?" There was a pause on the other end. "I need to warn you that what I'm about. Twin girls from Virginia vanished on a cruise ship holiday, leaving their single mother's world torn apart. But 10 months later, a suitcase washes up on the shore. And what they find inside leaves everyone in shock." Angela Whitmore sat in the dimly lit living room of her small Roanoke home, surrounded by the remnants of a 10-month investigation that had yielded nothing but dead ends. Missing persons flyers with the smiling faces of her twin daughters were scattered across her coffee table. Some with corners curled from handling, others faded from sunlight that streamed through the blinds she rarely adjusted anymore.